There's a moment every man fears, even if he's never admitted it out loud. It's not rejection. Something quieter, more humiliating. It's the moment a woman looks at you, not with anger, not with hatred, but with complete and total indifference, like your furniture, like you were never really there at all. Machiavelli called this the slow death of a man's presence, keen. And after studying the behavior of women across courts, kingdoms, and households for decades, he came to one brutal conclusion. Most men don't lose women in dramatic fashion. They don't lose them in a fight. They don't lose them to a rival. They lose them gradually, invisibly, by becoming ordinary. Before you dismiss this as cynicism, understand who we're talking about. Niccolo Machiavelli was not a romantic. He was an observer. A man who spent his life watching how power moved between people, not just in politics, not just in war, but in the most intimate theater of all, the space between a man and a woman. And what he found was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable because it placed almost all of the responsibility on the man. Not on fate, not on her, on him. So let's talk about what he actually discovered. Let's talk about how a man becomes just another one. The first thing Machiavelli observed was the erosion of mystery. In the beginning, a man holds something rare, his unknown, his thoughts, reactions, depths. They haven't been mapped yet. And a woman's imagination, which is far more powerful than most men realize, fills in those gaps with fascination. She wonders about him. She thinks about him when he's not there. She tries to figure him out. And that process of figuring out, that pursuit of understanding, is where attraction quietly lives. It's not in certainty, it's in the search. But then, what happens? The man, wanting to connect, wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted, starts to open everything. He talks too much. He explains himself too often. He shares every opinion, every fear, every plan, every insecurity. He believes that vulnerability is intimacy, and sometimes it is. But Machiavelli warned that there is a critical difference between depth and transparency. Depth draws people in. Transparency removes the reason to look. Then a woman can predict exactly what you'll say before you say it, exactly how you'll react before you react, exactly where you'll be and what you'll think and what you want. You are no longer a man, she's exploring. You are a solved equation, quad, and nobody spends time with a problem they've already solved. The second pattern Machiavelli identified was the collapse of tension. This one is subtle but devastating. In the early stages, there is distance between two people. Physical distance, emotional distance, uncertainty about the other person's feelings, and that distance creates tension. Not the bad kind, the electric kind. The kind that makes a message feel like an event. The kind that makes a glance carry weight. That tension is not a flaw in the connection. That tension is the connection. Remove the tension and you remove the feeling. Men collapse this tension in the name of security. They text back immediately every single time. They rearrange their entire schedule to be available. They say, "I love you" so frequently, it becomes background noise. They eliminate all uncertainty because they believe certainty will make her feel safe, and she does feel safe. But safety and desire are not the same emotion. You can feel completely safe with someone and feel zero pull toward them. In fact, the safer and more predictable someone feels, the more they begin to feel like a sibling. And nobody is attracted to a sibling. Machiavelli observed this in courts where noble women who were adored openly, who had men falling at their feet in absolute devotion, were frequently pursuing the one man in the room who seemed unmoved, not cruel, not cold, just composed, just occupied with something other than her approval. That man held power without announcing it, and she felt it without being able to explain it. The third thing Machiavelli found was perhaps the most damaging: the surrender of standards. He wrote that a man who will accept anything eventually becomes worth nothing. This doesn't mean a man should be cold or punishing. It means a man should have a life, a direction, a set of things he simply will not compromise. Because here's the psychological truth hiding beneath the surface of every relationship. A woman is constantly, unconsciously, running an assessment, not a cruel assessment, a survival assessment. She is asking, without knowing she's asking, is this man someone I can rely on when the world gets hard? Does he have a spine? Does he have conviction? Does he believe in something enough to hold his ground? When a man cancels his plans every time she has a mood, when he apologizes for things that don't deserve an apology, when he changes his opinion the moment she pushes back, when he shrinks himself to avoid conflict, she gets her answer, and the answer is not reassuring. The answer tells her that when things get truly difficult, when life actually tests them, this man will fold, and she may not leave immediately. She may stay for months, even years, but the respect will drain, slowly, quietly, and respect is the root system of attraction. Once the root dies, the flower follows eventually, no matter how good things look on the surface. Machiavelli was ruthless about this point because he had seen it play out repeatedly. Men who were kind, who were generous, who were devoted, and who were left. Not because they were bad men, because they had no center of gravity. A woman can love a man and still feel herself pulling away from him if there is nothing immovable in him. If everything in him bends to her preferences, her moods, her demands, then she is not with a man. She is with a mirror, and mirrors don't lead anywhere. Now here's the part most people miss when they encounter these ideas. They think the lesson is to become cold, to play games, to manufacture distance artificially. That is a misreading. Machiavelli was not teaching men to be manipulative. He was teaching men to be real, to be genuinely occupied with their own purpose, to have actual standards, not performed ones, to hold genuine mystery, not manufactured silence, because women are not fooled by performance for long. What they respond to is not the act of a man being confident. It is an actual confident man. It's not the act of a man who doesn't need her. Kate, it is a man who genuinely, deeply, has built a life that does not collapse without her. This is the hardest part of the lesson because it demands real work. It demands that a man actually build something, actually develop himself, actually have goals so consuming that his attention is a genuine gift, not a desperate offering. The man who is working on something great, who is moving towards something that matters to him, who wakes up in the morning with direction, that man has something that cannot be faked and cannot be ignored. He has gravity, okay? And gravity doesn't need to beg anything to stay in orbit. Machiavelli's final observation was perhaps the most elegant. He noticed that the men women most consistently returned to, most consistently thought about, most consistently described as unforgettable were not the most handsome, not the wealthiest, not even the most charming. They were the most self-possessed. They were men who were completely, utterly at home inside themselves. Men who did not need the room to validate them. Men who did not need her to complete them. Men who were, at the core, already whole. And there is a deep irony buried in this. The man who needs her least is the man she most wants to need. The man who is complete without her is the man she most wants to be with, because she knows, instinctively, that being chosen by a man who could walk away and be fine is a real choice. It means something, but being chosen by a man who would fall apart without her is not really a choice. It's dependency wearing the costume of love. And on some level, she knows the difference. She has always known the difference. So the question Machiavelli leaves us with is not how to attract women. It's deeper than that. The question is whether you are actually becoming someone, whether you are building something real, whether the life you're living would still have shape and direction and meaning even if she stepped out of the frame. 'Cause if the answer is no, if she is the frame and you are just the empty space inside it, then you have already begun the slow disappearance. You have already started becoming just another one. The antidote is not strategy, It's not technique. It's the oldest and most demanding work a man can do, becoming so genuinely, completely, purposefully himself that his presence cannot be ignored and his absence cannot be forgotten. That is what Machiavelli found. After all those years, all those observations, all those courts and letters and cold assessments of human nature, that was the conclusion. Be real, be whole, Tia, be someone. Everything else follows.